Take a look at this. It's a demonstration in Berlin against national lockdown orders. Germans are using their constitutional right to assemble. They are protesting against the government telling them they no longer have the right to freely leave their homes. With 95% of Americans under similar lockdown orders, I'm scratching my head wondering, where are all the progressives and libertarians? Oh, that's right. They're at home. Many of whom are in agreement with our rights being stripped away from us, saying it's in the name of safety and security. I've heard that one before. In Mississippi, the police broke up a drive-in church service where parishioners sat in their individual cars listening to the service on the radio. The police were overheard in video saying, "Your rights have been suspended." All across the country, churchgoers and pastors have been issued tickets for attending services. At one church in Virginia, 16 people were sufficiently spaced apart in a room that seats 293. Yet the police broke it up and issued the pastor a criminal summons. In Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer has banned the sale of anything she deems non-essential in the big box stores such as Home Depot, Walmart, and Target. People are now prevented from buying home improvement supplies or even seeds to plant food in a garden. Essentially, they are told to stay at home and aren't even allowed to pass the time productively. Birthday parties and funerals are being broken up by the police, and unless you carry an essential worker document, the police are well within their rights to stop and ticket you for violating the stay-at-home orders. You have lost your right to leave your home unless you are going out for groceries or medicines. And that is just in America. All around the world, governments have issued new laws and new ways to control their populations, whether through tracking apps or, in some cases, brute force. I understand there's a deadly virus circulating around, and I understand we all need to keep ourselves and each other safe. But I question the method in which we all seemingly have agreed to. When any of us talk about strategies that don't involve mandatory lockdowns, we're accused of putting money over people, especially when talking about strategies to achieve natural herd immunity. I want to know, since when is following a known scientific approach become a Republican idea and sheltering in place while waiting for Big Pharma to rescue us with a vaccine a Democrat idea? This is where I'm confused. Many of us who fight for the freedom of Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, and against the Patriot Act are now in another moment of terror, willing to relinquish the very rights our founding fathers risked and gave their lives for. We shelter in our homes while the greatest wealth heist in human history happens right under our noses. You want to talk about money? Opening the economy isn't about helping Wall Street or benefiting capitalists. People have it backward. Keeping it closed is allowing the banks and investors to squeeze any and every last ounce of financial freedom we might have had away from us. Banks make their money from giving out loans. Now suddenly the economy has stopped, yet the banks are largely still collecting mortgages, rents, car payments, and credit card payments. People are now scrambling to get loans to cover the loan payments they already have. Renters are being given rent deferments but are expected to pay it all back as soon as they can resume their normal lives. Essentially, they're taking out rent loans. And if you can't get a loan to cover your loans, the banks will just take your house and sell it to the wealthy as a cheap investment. Don't worry. You might be able to rent your old house from your new landlord. The longer these lockdowns go on, the smaller the middle class and the larger the welfare class becomes. Food banks can't keep up with the demand from hungry Americans. Unemployment has skyrocketed. We are not talking about a recession. We are talking about a depression. We are talking about millions upon millions upon millions of Americans being enslaved to the banks in indentured servitude. The rich will only get richer. They have the extra capital to buy up your sold stocks for dirt cheap, buy up your foreclosed home for dirt cheap, and buy up your closed down small business for dirt cheap, all sold or lost because you desperately needed money to get you through this. That is capitalism, folks. It's a system where people who have the extra money to invest during economic downturns run off richer. Opening the economy back up isn't a capitalist idea. Keeping it closed is a capitalist dream. And that's just the money part. That's not even dipping into the fact our rights as people are being violated. Right now, it isn't legal to leave our own homes except for necessities. Is there no other way to flatten the curve but to force people? Why don't we incentivize people instead? Rather than force people to abandon their jobs and businesses while claiming, oh, don't worry, we'll figure out feeding your family and helping you economically later, as if our government has ever been efficient at either of those things, why are we not demanding they come up with a plan to encourage us to stay at home instead? They could say to the business owners, we will offer you XYZ financial package to keep you going if you close down. This gives the business owner the choice and incentive to close their doors for safety reasons. Because people are genuinely afraid of the virus, fewer people are going out anyway. Businesses would likely choose the financial package over staying open. Same for individuals. Rather than force us, the government could offer us the money and services to stay afloat if we choose to shelter in place instead. Again, because of the natural chilling the virus has created over society, most people would make this choice. But it needs to be a choice if we are to call ourselves a free society. A government that is truly for the people, of the people, and by the people looks out for the people, all the while maintaining their essential freedoms and liberties. Right now, we are all being forced to shelter in place and beg for help. Now let's talk about another aspect of this that isn't making sense. Right now, the plan is to shelter in place so we don't overwhelm our medical system. The very medical system many of us feel is severely lacking. Clearly, we don't have enough hospital beds, doctors, nurses, equipment, and various other medical necessities to accommodate our population, especially not in a time of crisis. And since we are working hard to accommodate it, rather than it accommodate us, when this is all over, we're likely to just go back to business as usual. Did we not learn anything from the military-industrial complex? The military-industrial complex rose up during wartime when it was necessary for the nation to rapidly build ships, tanks, and weapons. Many jobs were created. And when the war ended, people were worried they would suddenly lose those jobs. Businesses worried they would lose their lucrative government contracts, and young men worried they wouldn't have the option of joining the military for good pay. So we turned to endless wars. We created a need for the industry we created, and now trillions of our tax dollars have gone to support it. Obviously, there are serious issues with the war industry, and if you are a frequent viewer of my show, you know I am very much against it. But there's a lesson we could apply to our medical system. What if we forced the system to accommodate the current increased need? Let's ramp up our medical system, build hospitals, manufacture medical equipment, and train medical professionals the same way we did with our military in an urgent time of need. And when this virus has been contained, we would hopefully be left with a robust medical system that political leaders would have to choose to either shut down and force people out of jobs or keep going. They'd likely keep it going. No politician wants to be the cause of jobs lost. It's political suicide. This strategy would likely lead us to some form of Medicare for all system, just like we now have a war for all system. And it likely would be a more cohesive and coordinated system that would be much better prepared in the likely event we have another pandemic or, God forbid, are under biological or chemical attack. So you see, the strategy so many of us currently are okay with is not only dangerous for our democracy and freedoms, but it also doesn't make sense nor change. We are maintaining the status quo while our wealthy leaders in Washington squabble over how little they need to offer us to keep us from revolting. We're keeping our decrepit medical system from adapting while we wait for big pharma to come to the rescue. This is a bad plan, and I hope many of you start to realize it.